All right, I got a tough one to start off with.
Man,
We start off with the real heavy hitting,
not
complicated
too hard.
questions.
Not too hard. Let's do
In
it.
and out or Five Guys?
I'm a loyalist, man. Yeah, in and out, man. In and out all the way. I'm sorry.
That's good.
Yep,
That's a great answer.
absolutely. They get brownie points when you lift the cup up. They get brownie points for me.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a really good point. What do they have on the bottom of the cup? Is it John 3:16?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Christian beef, man.
Yeah, that's good.
Welcome to 10 Questions with 10 Pastors. Brought to you by Gateway Seminary. With your host, Tyler Sanders.
I'm Tyler Sanders, Director of Communications at Gateway Seminary, and I'm here with old classmate and friend James Westbrook, lead pastor of Realm Church in Oakland.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oaktown.
you planted that church,
Planted
right?
church, yeah.
When did you start the church?
Man, the way I'm describing the timeline is I say 5 months before COVID. So that's how I'm describing the timeline. But 2019, we officially, fall. Yep.
That's fantastic.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. Well, my first real question,
Yeah.
what are you reading right now?
What am I reading? I'm reading Brother N.T. Wright.
Okay.
I'm reading his big 2 volumes on Paul, and so
Oh, man. Huge volumes.
yeah, huge volumes. Yeah, so you just got to work through it and pick them up and put them down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm learning more on the new perspective, things like that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And my first, I got a couple of questions here about preaching.
Yeah.
So the first one is kind of big picture, macro level.
Yeah.
How do you approach planning like a series of sermons? How far out are you thinking, and how do you kind of prep for that?
My understanding of that has changed because of my time on the field. So maybe 2 years ago, I would have given you a different answer. But as a pastor, especially in the area that we're planting, I do feel the need to make sure that I'm staying connected to our people and making sure that I'm preaching through series and preaching through books that kind of meet us where we are. And so with prayer and with discernment, I plan those out. And sometimes, like for instance, when a lot of things were happening in 2018, I was planning a different series, but I felt through discernment and through conviction that, hey, I need to probably start talking about things around the idea of justice. So I did Justice in June series, and so I interrupted our series in the book of Luke. And so I try to plan out as much as possible based off of where I want to take our church through a leadership paradigm. But sometimes it's just say, hey, I think I need to listen to the Lord here, or listen to conviction or discernment.
Okay, that's good. So it's not really the reverse of that question. Maybe it's a little bit deeper version of that question. How do you approach it on the more micro week to week level? Kind of like, how do you get really from like a text to the sermon, the actual sermon you're going to preach?
Yeah, I believe in that old method that, Spurgeon said it best, you prepare like there's no Holy Spirit and preach like there's no preparation. And so I do all of my prep with my, your background, your history and things like that, that I learned very well from Gateway Seminary. Thank you, Gateway. I do that up front, but I try to use the last 4 days of the week to really do the work of meditation and allowing it to really sink down in heart so I can apply it. Because if you do not do the work of application and really trying to figure out what it means to warm the hearts of your people with the truth of the gospel, then essentially what you're doing is giving a seminary lecture. Another thing I'm grateful for Gateway Seminary is that you had, practitioners. These are people that not only give you the scholarship, but they have a way of connecting with people in the pews.
Yeah.
And so that's important.
Yeah. What's the most difficult passage you've ever preached?
Oh, man. Anytime there's something controversial going on in culture, that immediately becomes the most difficult passage. So for instance, if it has to do with, roles, if it has to do with, well, and I'll tell you this, those are just topics and themes, but, right now we're preaching through the book of Jonah, right?
Okay.
So now this has more so to do with hermeneutical approach.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this quickly here. Chapter 2, I preached the whole chapter without making reference to Jesus' words regarding the significance of Jonah.
Yeah.
And hermeneutically, my one of my elders came up to do the benediction, and he referenced it. I'm like, ouch. And so one thing I did, kind of assuage or soothe myself. I said, and part of it's true. I said, hey, do I approach that text when Jesus says it and read back and then bring Jonah up then?
Yeah.
Or do I bring it up now? Or is it okay to actually talk about Jonah in the context it's in
Yeah.
and allow progressive revelation to do its work at its time, in the future?
Yeah.
So it's choices like that that's becoming increasingly difficult.
It's complex.
It's complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What role do you feel like is your sweet spot in ministry? What's like a task, a pastoral task that you're just like, you're in your zone? And maybe what's one that's like you're working on or growing edge, or you're like, this isn't I have to do this. I know it's important, but it's not it's not my favorite.
Oh yeah, I can answer this question in my sleep, man, because when you begin to pastor, you see those strengths and you see those weaknesses. And I realized early on that, hey, I need to become more disciplined in the area of loving people over long periods of time, right? My strength is that I'm able to mobilize. My strength is that I'm able to proclaim and get people excited about what we're doing. I can preach difficult things, maybe that's a weird part of me, However, that process of discipleship, this is difficult to be right there in the trenches over long periods of time.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that, wait a minute, this is actually doing more for my growth and my sanctification as a pastor than often it's maybe doing for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you can take this one as seriously or unseriously. I don't want this to be a gotcha.
Okay, all right.
What is a swing and a miss you've had in ministry?
Oh, okay. Swing and a miss. Yeah. Okay. One swing and a miss is I saw somebody that I love just walk by.
For the listeners, we're recording this at the SBC annual meeting in Nashville.
This is the most realist you're going to get right here.
Yeah.
Gateway we're not faking. It's real.
This is totally real.
There it is. I think one swing and miss would be, and I think preachers feel it every time. It's going to be primarily around preaching because that's what you're doing the most. I'll give you two. One would be I made a quick hire because I was rushing and I wanted this image. I wanted this person. I wanted this success, and I didn't vet the person properly in terms of their leadership, and they weren't ready. I gave them too much responsibility. And so that means that, hey, I only have so many times that I can do that before I begin to compromise my own leadership in the eyes of my people. Yeah. One. And two, I think it's typically around the text, preaching, hey, I should have said this, or maybe I shouldn't have said that, and so we tend to be too hard on ourselves with that.
Yeah. In regards to seminary, what's something a pastor cannot learn in seminary? You only learn when you're doing the work.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think that seminaries do a wonderful job at even, the best professors that bring all the experience in the world with them. It still doesn't quite prepare you for actually experiencing these things, and the loneliness that you can sometimes feel, the fear that you can sometimes feel, the comparison. All those things are internal, and they're produced while you're in the circumstance, while you're in the seasons. And there's not enough amount of preparation on the front end that can actually prepare you for that, because you have to go through it. Yeah. And then you begin to recall, that's why they said this. That's why Dr. Ork said that. That's why Adam said that. Dr. Gross said this. And Dr. Berquist and on and on. And so there's much in terms of just raw experience that you just have to get out there and do.
What is something that you would say? It's your opinion. What do you think a student must learn in seminary? Like, if there's one thing they have to come out of seminary with, what do you think that would be? Yeah.
After you graduated from seminary, even with a master's, that doesn't mean that you've mastered ministry. Remain a student
Yeah.
Stay humble before the Lord, stay hungry before the Lord, and realize that the work of preaching or the work of serving people and the work of loving people does not stop when the books are closed, right? When you've finished as much as you can on a particular topic. It starts really, as James says, that complete doctrine is just not what you know and what you proclaim. It's an action. It's the gospel made visible and tangibilized and lived out. So I say that humility is going to be the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself your first year in ministry?
No. These are great questions, man. The advice I would give myself, I would say, Pastor James, there's an audience of one here, okay? And you have to make sure that you're in sync with him, with the triune God. And so I think that is, when you're in the field, when you're on the field, when you're in ministry, whether you're lead pastor, whether you're music minister, whether you're teaching, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, when that is the central focus, it makes all the difference, because a lot of the pitfalls in ministry has a lot to do with comparison and fear and all the other things, man, the pride of life, the lust of the eye, So I would say, brother, it's okay not to know everything. And you don't have to present like you know everything.
Yeah.
Relax. God has this. Trust him and lead. Yeah.
Okay, one more question for you.
All right.
Personal story. How'd you meet Jesus?
Oh, man. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Here it is. Here's the 30-second version. Here it is. I was raised initially Muslim, and then I became a nun, missiologically speaking, when my mother got a divorce from the Muslim, and then after that period, around the age of 15, I read a book that my mom had on her table from a neighbor. And the book was titled Divine Revelation of Hell. I'm like, well, that seems interesting with this blue cover. I read the book, and I read it from cover to cover. And with the type of lifestyle that I was living at the time, that was not something that it was typical of me to just pick up books and read just for intellectual enjoyment or stimulation. And so I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would later, as my theology formed, would later critique the book and say, I don't see this as something biblical, but God used it as a mighty tool in my life. And that led me, and people were praying for me. My art teacher was praying for me. And I remember feeling this sense that I am a sinner. I'm separated from God. I feel like I've lived life autonomously, and I want to know this God. And I repented for like 3 hours. And from that day, I said, I guess you go to church. I think that's what Christians do. And I went to a local church. I walked to church, a local church.
Wow.
And then the rest is history. That was about 24 years ago.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
Thank you, brother.
That's fantastic.
Praise the Lord.
Well, thank you for sharing that so much. And thanks for sitting with us for a couple of minutes here. Really appreciate it, man.
My joy.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say one more thing. Outside of Choose Gateway, love this seminary, love the seminary. Go Cards, St. Louis Cardinals. All right, we're fourth in our division right now, but we're coming back. Okay,
That's
God
right.
bless you all.
That's right.